How does this one person who is not from the area come to that area where the president's golfing and know that the president is going to be there golfing and is able to get there with a rifle and line up a shot and supposedly all that? How does that happen?
Great question, JJ, and something, of course, the investigation is going to figure out. But from what we know right now is the individual had an unusual direction of interest towards President Trump. He had an unusual direction of interest towards everything Ukraine. He lived in Florida someplace. So he was in the same state where the golf course was at. He clearly had been near or at the golf course that day and other days surveilling it. And let's face it, President Trump has motorcade the golf course are not unknown locations. So it doesn't take much to actually just hang out by the golf course, watch when the motorcade's coming, watch when it's leaving. And also, it doesn't take much to figure out that the president likes to play golf. And when he's in Mar-a-Lago, he goes to his golf course pretty regularly. So I don't think this was anything spy novel worthy. I think this was simply an individual who took advantage of public information, was able to track down and figure out when the president was back and forth at a golf course, and use some patience because he may have been there for a while that day waiting for him to arrive. As far as how he was able to get into the golf course, we have to keep in mind that this golf course is one of these few golf courses that is in the middle of a city. And because it's in the middle of a city, it's very difficult to secure because of the roads all around it. And in this case, where he accessed, it was a main road that abutted the golf course. And for the Secret Service is always trying to find the right tension point between security and letting the public have access to where the public needs to access. In this case, the city of West Palm, having it be able to, the citizens there to be able to, continue to live and not be impacted by the president playing golf on his golf course. So it's always a tricky thing to figure out what that right tension point is. And the Secret Service has to constantly readjust its protection methodology to get to that right tension point. And sometimes it works well, as in this case, it seemed to work well insofar as the overlapping security measures that the Secret Service typically uses on a protection visit. And other times it doesn't work as well, as we saw in Butler, Pennsylvania back in July.
Okay, and if you look at the difference between the way the FBI performed in Butler and the way they performed in West Palm on Sunday, what do you see?
Stark contrast. And one of the critical things, I think, the difference between West Palm and Butler, Pennsylvania is, the Secret Service has been in West Palm now with former President Trump since, 2015, 2016. So they have a long-standing working relationship with the Sheriff's Department there and probably the surrounding Sheriff's Departments. And in the case of West Palm, those relationships, that working relationship, and the Secret Service's protective methodology they use for the golf course with the overlapping security measures did what it needed to do. It mitigated a risk that presented itself on a golf course. Generally, golf course movements use three different elements: forward element, the element with the protectee, and a rear element. The forward element sweeps and checks, typically to move golfers out of the way. In this case, it found a threat. It addressed the threat. The threat left. The locals were notified. It was a Secret Service team that got the identification materials from a witness. They related that to the locals. We're able to use some tremendous technology that's available to law enforcement today, the real-time crime center and the license plate readers, to track the vehicle and ultimately apprehend the suspect. So it was almost a picture-perfect scenario of interagency cooperation and coordination. Butler, on the other hand, was a situation where that interagency cooperation and coordination was clearly lacking. And neither the Secret Service nor its partners were as coordinated and working as well as they should have been. And whether that's because it was a new thing there in Butler, Pennsylvania, meaning they've never worked together before, or that was because there were some gaps created by misinformation or not enough information, that is not the right example of a protective venue. That what happened in West Palm is more of what the Secret Service typically does and what we want to see.
John, as we close in on the election and we have this incident 62 days after the first one, and there are a little less than 50 some days, or about 50 some days before the election. Are there any adjustments you see that might need to be made, not just by Secret Service and law enforcement, but the American people in terms of our mentality and our thought processes as we close in on this election, looking in the rear view mirror at these two incidents?
Great question, JJ. I just want to remind people for historical context that President Ford's two assassination attempts were 17 days apart. So this actually is a longer span of time in comparison to President Ford's attempts. But overall, the rise in political violence we've seen around the country, the rise in attacks on elected officials, and the rise of foreign adversaries who are trying to influence the election and foment violence in the United States, is we're seeing it. It's being felt. It's unfortunate, but it's where we're at. Social media isn't helping. The internet's not helping. For the Secret Service, their problem is a constant adjustment to this threat matrix that they're dealing with and surging resources, which are finite. But, for the Secret Service to handle Trump, VP Harris, president, and all the other protectees, 33 permanent protectees, if they had to go everywhere they went and close off roads, shut down towns, shut down airports, and shut down, event sites and large swaths of cities, I don't know how long the American people or their local elected officials would stand for that. So it's trying to find that right tension point where you can have the security bubbles you need, but you also have the ability to provide that level of protection you need. DC being an example. In DC, the protectees move around DC pretty constantly. And thus far, we've been other than the Reagan situation, we've been pretty lucky to be able to create those security perimeters in DC, but not shut down the entire city, other than large events, the inauguration or something. So that is the constant work that the Secret Service needs to do with its local counterparts on protection visits. And I think, of course, they're going to start revisiting this for the rest of the campaign, because maybe it is time for the Secret Service and its local counterparts to raise everything to a presidential level so we can get through this campaign without another incident.
Is there anything that's on your mind that I haven't asked you about that you think is important about this?
I think that we're in a very unique and very dangerous environment right now for the presidential campaign. I think the Secret Service has been asking for and needing more resources to handle the campaign. I think the White House and Congress and DHS need to get out of the way and give the Secret Service what it needs so it can make sure it provides the protective resources to get through the rest of this campaign so we don't have any more incidents. And so both former President Trump and VP Harris can run their campaigns without having to worry about, if I step out onto a stage or I do an outdoor event, this is what's going to happen. It may require some adjustments on the part of the candidates, better controlled outdoor events, less outdoor events, whatever that looks like. I think both the campaigns, the Secret Service, and the government writ large need to get together, decide what that's going to look like, and put it together so that way we can get to the end of this campaign without having another assassination attempt or worse.
Do you think that's what President Biden was hinting at earlier today when he said they need help?
I think he was, but I think the Secret Service since July 13th have been asking for help. So my question to the White House, to the president, to DHS, and to Congress is, why is it taking so long? Why hasn't that help arrived for the Secret Service? Why has the help that the Secret Service has asked for not materialized yet? And I don't know if that answer is out there yet.
So are you able to say, based on your knowledge, what help they need, they're asking for?
The Secret Service has asked for an increased funding in order to address some technological issues, hiring, and also training for the people that are staffing the campaign. That hasn't materialized. I know they've asked for DoD resources. I know it was approved by the Secretary of DoD. I don't know if the resources have actually materialized yet. So whatever the Secret Service has asked for resource-wise, at this point in time, should be allowed to happen outside of politics, and it should and both the White House and Congress and DHS should get out of the way and say, okay, this is what you asked for. Here it comes. But I don't know if we've seen that yet.